I'm just gonna get into this a little slow and ADHD for my sake, because I'm quickly realizing on how my chronic fatigue relates to this, using my transdualistic philosophy in relationship to media, because it's one of those things where, like, I'm like just getting overwhelmed with all the information I'm getting and how it's like I can read this and I'll absorb it so quickly, but being able to translate it back takes some fucking time and energy, man. So that's where I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do this one, but I'm not gonna read everything in the film script. I'm gonna sort of bounce around probably because, yeah, like, let's be honest, like anybody into One Piece sort of is into One Piece for the most part, and anybody that is just talking about it that's not into it, like, we're pretty much not listening to those people because, okay, you're obviously a pseudo intellectual if you're not even into this and you're just talking about it because other people are talking about it. You're just a, pseudo intellectual parrot, and I don't know. Some of those obviously exist. I have no clue. I've not been in the fandom of any of these fandoms. Because I am a lover of media. I am not a fan. That's the way I put it, man. Because I love One Piece, but I hate the franchise, and I'm highly critical of Oda. But at the same time, I really respect the work he's made, even though I'm highly critical of it. And that's where I'm laughing my butt off because I'm just seeing where Oda doesn't go deep enough, the fans don't go deep enough, even the intellectual fans don't go deep enough. So let's go a little deeper, man, because Oda's gotten the framework for the personal justices of the admirals, all their okay, this is our personal take on how we view absolute justice, but I was realizing we need to expand this, man. We need like the pirates. Luffy embodies absolute freedom, so obviously the pirates are sort of on the side of freedom. And, their morals are absolute freedom. Even if they're not Luffy with his absolute freedom, they're all after absolute freedom in their own personal way. So we got all these different, little labels now we're working on. So let's get straight to the Admiral frameworks. Sengoku is reigning justice. Sengoku is the fleet admiral for most of the story's timeline, and his justice is best understood not as a personal moral conviction, but as something closer to stewardship of order itself. Sengoku doesn't ask whether the world government system is right in any deep philosophical sense. He asks whether it is holding, whether it continue to hold, and he shapes every decision around that pragmatic concern. He's the justice of the administrator, someone who has decided that the alternative to a imperfect order is a catastrophic disorder, and who therefore protects the institution even when the institution is wrong. He knows the best call is excessive. He knows the world government is capable of genuine moral crimes, and he continues anyway because he believes that without the Marines continuing providing ballast, ordinary people suffer the most. His justice is conservative in the truest philosophical sense. It preserves existing structures out of a genuine fear of what replaces them. Akainu, thorough justice. Akainu is the purest expression of the absolute justice ideal, and it's most terrifying. His thorough justice doesn't just enforce the law, it eliminates anything that could threaten the law, permanently, preemptively, without exception. The defining moment of his philosophy isn't even a battle, it's his logic for killing retreating soldiers at Marineford. The idea that men who show weakness might one day spread that weakness to others, and therefore they must be removed. This is what absolute conviction looks like when it has no counterweight. It isn't cruelty for cruelty's sake, it is cruelty in service of a principle, which is in some ways more frightening. Akainu is the answer to the question, what does absolute justice become when the person embodying it has no mercy? Akaiji, lazy justice. Akaiji is the counterpart to Akainu within the Admiral framework, and the tension between them is one of the most important ideological fault lines in the entire series. His lazy justice isn't really laziness, it's a form of selective mercy, the recognition that not every application of the law produces a just outcome, and that sometimes the most ethical thing a person can do is to hesitate. He lets Robin live when the rules say she should die. He leaves Luffy alone at Marineford when he can end it. And when he loses the vote for Fleet Admiral to Akainu and resigns, the story is quietly devastating about what the outcome means. That within the current institution, Akaiji's version of justice can't win. So he leaves, which is either the most honest thing he could do or the most evasive, depending on how you read him. Kizaru, unclear justice. Kizaru might be the most philosophically unsettling admiral because these problems aren't having the wrong values. He seems to have no deeply held values at all. He executes orders efficiently. Basically, he's just, the system's most effective weapon precisely because he has no friction, no conscience to slow him down. Fujitora, merciful justice. Fujitora blinded himself on purpose. That detail is worth sitting with because it's the key to his entire character. He couldn't bear to see the ugliness of the world that he was being asked to defend, but crucially, this isn't naivety. He chose blindness knowing exactly what the world looked like. His mercy is not ignorance, it's a deliberate choice not to let knowledge harden into cruelty. His justice is accountability. After Dressrosa, where the Marines complicitly in Doflamingo's regime is exposed, uh, uh, Fujitora publicly apologizes to civilian victims on behalf of the institution. He tells the world the warlord system failed. That is almost seditious within the Marine hierarchy, and he does it because he believes power must be answerable for its consequences, not just its intentions. He is the closest the Marines come to producing someone who would fit comfortably on the pirate side of the moral ledger. Uh, Ryokojiu, I'm assuming that's the word, and I'm guessing this was the tree dude. Uh, yeah, it says his determination is somewhat subtly different than Akainu's, and it's subtly different and more unsettling. He has decided the world government is correct, and he pursues that conclusion with terrifying single-mindedness that doesn't seem to require ongoing moral justification. He marches into Wano to eliminate the scabbard in service of the Celestial Dragon Authority, not because he's wrestled with the ethics, but because he has determined that this is his function. He is less a moral agent than a weapon that has decided it agrees with the hand holding it. Tsiru, I'm guessing that, cleansing justice. Hers is cleansing justice. Tsiru's devil fruit lets her literally launder people, hang them out like wet clothes, wring the evil out of them. It is the most domestically mundane power in a series full of world-ending abilities, and Oda chose it with complete intentionality. Tsuzuru's cleansing justice is built on a belief that Akainu would find incomprehensible, that people are not permanently defined by the worst things they have done. They can be cleaned, reformed, returned to the world better than they left it. She is the most optimistic voice in the entire justice framework, and yet she is also notably not at the center of the institution's power, which might be Oda's quietest, most damning observation about how institutions create compassionate pragmatism. Garp is my justice. Garp is the most philosophically sovereign figure on the Marine side. Every other admiral exists within some relationship to the institutional framework, even if they push against it. Garp simply decided that his personal moral compass supersedes the institution when they conflict, and has survived long enough and earned enough respect that the institution tolerates this. Yeah, basically that's pretty much his with that stuff. Basically he's a garbage person. So yeah, my justice turns out to be deeply lonely because he loves his ace like a grandson, can't save him. It gives him moral integrity, but scripts of him every relationship that matter. Yeah, he's a garbage person, exactly. Smoker, pursuing justice. Smoker rhymes with Garp, but at an earlier position in the same developmental arc. Garp has arrived at his personal justice. It's a settled, costly position. Smoker is still becoming his version of it. Yeah, just keep it at that for now. Let's go on to part 2, Absolute Freedom, the Emperor Framework. Now let's cross on to the other side. The 4 emperors, the most powerful pirates in the world. They don't have a unified doctrine the way the Marines do. What they share is a general orientation toward freedom. The pirate creed that no one has the right to cage another's will. But freedom, like justice, is only as meaningful as the person embodying it. And what we find when we look at the emperors is the same pattern we found at the admirals. The same ideals filtered through completely different human psychologies, producing completely different lived philosophies. So let's go with the one that started this whole line of questioning to begin with. Luffy, instinctive freedom. Luffy is the purest expression of the ideal because he doesn't think about freedom. He simply is it. He never plans, never calculates, never lets obligation or consequence dictate what he does. He becomes the Pirate King not to rule others, but because the Pirate King, by definition, is the one person no one can tell what to do. This is what makes him so dangerous to the world government ideologically. He doesn't oppose them out of ideology, he just refuses to be contained, which undermines the entire premise of their authority without even trying to. He is the thesis statement of the series, expressed through the most joyful and uncomplicated possible vehicle. Shanks. Gracious freedom. Shanks has enough power to dominate almost anyone, and he holds back constantly. His version of freedom is, I am free, and therefore I choose to protect the freedom of people who cannot protect their own. He stops wars, he makes deals, he moves quietly. He is less a conqueror than a steward, and yet there is nothing soft about him when his will is finally required. He represents freedom as maturity, the recognition that true power is measured not by what you take, but what you choose not to. He's less a conqueror than a steward. I like that because that is a key word that you're going to want to focus on too, because I just expanded this one just rewatching the G8 arc this morning, because I'm discovering how to, like, this is such an underrated filler arc. It is so comedic and so like powerful in its own ways, and nobody recognizes it, seems. So getting back to this. Oh yeah, the AI didn't come up with this. I had to dive into this. I was like, I asked you for the four emperors, oh, Whitebeard's dead, so he doesn't exist anymore? Like, what's up with that AI? Like, that's not cool, man. He's one of the most important ones to discuss. Whitebeard, paternal freedom. Whitebeard is the most important addition to this framework because he fundamentally redefines what freedom means in the One Piece world. Every other emperor pursues freedom as something personal, something that radiates outward from their own will. Whitebeard inverts this entirely. He's arguably the most powerful man in the world for most of the story, and what does he spend that power on? Building a family. His version of freedom is freedom as belonging. This sounds almost contradictory at first. How can family and freedom coexist when family means obligation and sacrifice? But Oda is making a very deliberate point. True freedom isn't the absence of bonds, it's the ability to choose your bonds. Whitebeard was a man who could have had anything, and he chose sons. Marineford is not really a war about Ace. It's a clash between two incompatible ideals about what power is for. The world government's idea that power enforces hierarchy, and Whitebeard's idea that power protects the people you love. His dying declaration that the One Piece is real and that someone will overturn the world is also thematically perfect. He doesn't claim the treasure, he doesn't want it, he dies already having found what he was looking for. In contrast to Kaido, who had equal power and found only emptiness. The difference between them is essentially love. I love how it's talking about Blackbeard before I got into Blackbeard. Or, wait, not Blackbeard. Or literally reading Blackbeard right underneath it. No, I love how it's talking about Kaido when we haven't even gotten to Kaido yet. Okay, Blackbeard. Predatory freedom. Blackbeard believes in freedom too, specifically his own, at the expense of everyone else's. He is the dark answer to the question, what happens when someone pursues absolute freedom without any moral compass? He strips away the romantic notions and reveals what unchecked freedom can become, the freedom of the powerful to devour the weak. He is in some ways the most honest pirate in the series because he doesn't pretend his freedom has any ethical content. He is the dark mirror of Luffy. Same creed, completely opposite soul. Big Mom, possessive freedom. Big Mom's version of freedom is freedom from loneliness, freedom from rejection, freedom from ever being denied is something she wants. Her kingdom is built around her right to take. She genuinely loves her children in her way, but her love is suffocating because in her worldview, the people she loves are hers, which means their freedom is subordinate to hers. She is a tragedy dressed as a monster, someone whose desire for connection is curdled into tyranny, and she's perhaps the series' clearest illustration that the absence of personal suffering is not the same thing as freedom. Kaido, whatever. Kaido, I think it is. Kaido, nihilistic freedom. Kaido doesn't want freedom. He wants to find something worth dying for. His strongest creature identity means he's beyond all conventional limits, and that has left him profoundly empty. His version of freedom is almost existentialist. If nothing can bind you, then nothing can give you meaning either. He forces others to fight because combat is the only thing that feels real to him, and his clash with Luffy is loaded with thematic weight because of what Luffy shows him. That freedom, lived fully and joyfully, feels like something, not like emptiness, like purpose. Buggy. I had to add this one, it was completely, didn't even think about Buggy. Accidental freedom. Buggy doesn't have a philosophy of freedom. He has a philosophy of survival dressed up as ambition, and the joke the story keeps telling is that the world keeps mistaking him for someone profound. His emperor status isn't really his. It's a corporate structure built by Crocodile and Mihawk using his name as a shield. He is the One Piece equivalent of a figurehead monarch. Technically sovereign, practically a mascot, but here's where it gets philosophically interesting. The world of One Piece runs on perception. Conqueror's Haki is literally the force of one's will imposing itself on reality. Buggy has none of this, and yet the world bends to him anyway, because the people project power onto him that he doesn't possess. Buggy's existence is a comical rebuttal to the ideal that the Pirate King needs to be a great man. And when placed against Shanks, who started in exactly the same place, on Roger's ship, present at every mythologically significant moment, the contrast is devastating. Same origin, completely opposite relationship to power. Shanks became freedom's most graceful steward. Buggy became its most chaotic accident. Part 3, the middle ground, the Warlord framework. Oh, I need to get a new chair soon. This fucking shit sucks. Fused spine, shitty ass little folding chair. Ugh. Anyway, so this is where the model gets genuinely destabilized. The Warlord system isn't just a third faction, it's a deliberate philosophical compromise that exposes the contradictions hiding inside both justice and freedom simultaneously. The world government looked at the existence of powerful pirates, people who by definition reject the authority of law, and said, we cannot eliminate you, so we will co-opt you. We will give you legal protection, institutional legitimacy, freedom from prosecution. In exchange, you act as weapons we can point at other pirates. The system is an administration of failure dressed up as policy. It concedes that absolute justice cannot be actually enforced absolutely, and papers over that concession with bureaucracy. This means every warlord exists in a state of institutionalized hypocrisy, simultaneously free and not free, pirate and not pirate, criminal and officer, and every individual warlord has a completely different relationship to that hypocrisy. Mihawk, transcendent indifference. Mihawk is the perfect starting point because he demonstrates that the system's internal contradiction doesn't have to produce internal conflict if you simply don't care about either side's ideology. He is the world's greatest swordsman, and that identity is the only authority he recognizes. He didn't join the Warlords out of loyalty or alignment, he joined because it was convenient and occasionally produced interesting opponents. When the system is abolished, he leaves without apparent anguish. His freedom is the byproduct of mastery rather than a will. He is free the way a mountain is free, not because he fights for it, but because nothing is strong enough to move him. Crocodile, cynical freedom. Crocodile's relationship to the system is completely transactional, and he never pretends otherwise. He used warlord status as a shield behind which to build Baroque works and attempt to seize an entire kingdom. He treated the world government's legitimacy as a tool rather than a value. His philosophy of freedom as acquisition, the belief that power is the only real freedom, and that any institution is only worth maintaining as long as it serves the accumulation of more power. He is a colder, more calculated Blackbeard, less gleeful nihilism, more clinical self-interest. Doflamingo, aristocratic freedom. Says his worldview is generally sophisticated, even though it is thoroughly monstrous. His philosophy throws through from his biography. He was born a celestial dragon, and his father voluntarily surrendered their status out of conscience, dragging a young Dofi into a world that immediately and brutally punishes him for it. Are you a fan of Doflamingo or something? Why are you calling him Dofi, AI? That's a little concerning in its own way. So anyway, the lesson he took: the world is divided into those who stand above and those who grovel below, and the only meaningful freedom is the freedom of those on top. His spider web motif isn't accidental. He sees himself at the center of a web of power, pulling strings, making everyone around him a puppet whether they know it or not. He doesn't just use the warlord system like Crocodile does. He performs it, revels in it, because institutionalized legitimacy layered over criminal networks, layered over personal strength, is his ideal state. It isn't a compromise. It is a philosophy-made architecture. Kuma, sacrificial justice. Kuma is one of the most heartbreaking figures in the series because his philosophy and his fate are in such a devastating tension. He was a revolutionary, a genuine idealist who fought for liberation alongside Dragon. And then, through choices the story is still excavating, he allowed himself to be transformed into a weapon of the very government he opposed, piece by piece, until nothing of the original self remained. His justice is redemptive self-erasure, and believes that one person's complete sacrifice can protect others. He uses the last remnants of his free will before the final modifications remove it entirely, to secretly program himself to send every straw hat to a place where they can grow stronger. He chooses the moment of his own disappearance as a person to perform one final act of protection. He is the series' most extreme argument that freedom can be expressed through its own voluntary surrender, a profound and devastating mirror of Whitebeard's paternal freedom. Whitebeard chose bonds and defended them triumphantly. Kuma chose to erase himself so that his bonds could survive him. Hancock, sovereign freedom. Hancock was enslaved as a child by the celestial dragons, bears their mark on her back, and has built her entire post-liberation identity around absolute personal sovereignty that is fierce precisely because it was so completely violated. Her freedom is inviolability. Wow, I'm having a hard time with that one. It's like involatile ability, I guess. The insistence that her will, her body, and her choices are hers absolutely. Her ability to turn attackers to stone is metaphorically perfect. She has weaponized the principle that she will not be touched without consent. Her love for Luffy is philosophically interesting because Luffy is the first person to completely free himself, that he doesn't need anything from her. He just treats her like a person. For someone with her history, that is so alien it dismantles every defense she has. Jinbei, communal freedom. Jinbei is the moral backbone of the Warlord rooster in the same way Fujitora is the moral consciousness of the Admiral roster. I said rooster, didn't I? Wow. Hope I didn't. Probably did. And like Fujitora, his integrity ultimately leads him out of the system entirely. He resigns his status rather than fight in a war against someone who has never wronged him or his community. His philosophy is freedom as collective dignity. He doesn't pursue personal power or individual liberation. He pursues a world where fishmen and human coexist, without either dominating the other, which means his version of freedom is inherently relational. It only means something if everyone has it. Moria, hollow freedom. Moria is the tragedy of what happens when someone had a genuine philosophy and then lost it catastrophically. He once led a powerful crew with real conviction and then lost everything to Kaido. The person who returned from that defeat was a hollowed-out version of the original. His thriller bark operation is a dark parody of Whitebeard's family building. He pursues a found family with all the risk and reciprocity surgically removed, replacing genuine bonds with zombies who cannot die and cannot leave. And this is precisely why he is ultimately less threatening than his power level suggests. Facsimiles of bonds don't generate the kind of will that matters in the One Piece world. For reals, think about like the Big Mom and her family and how her top people fight fiercely for her compared to, the Thriller Bark arc and, the top people there, Perona, it's like, yeah, she's really invested in this. Like, she is in the sense that she has a relationship, with Moria and admiration, a father figure shit, but in every other sense of the word, not really, She's this ditzy little sophomore little girl that's so into the solipsism, into her own ego that, nothing else matters. So, let's get to Law. Law is calculated freedom. Law is the most strategically minded warlord, and his relationship to freedom is entirely mediated through his long game plan to destroy Doflamingo and avenge Corazon. His justice is freedom as a debt to the end, or debt to the dead. He has subordinated his own desires and safety entirely to completing a mission that someone he loved gave their life to begin. This makes him a fascinating inversion of Kuma. Kuma erased himself to protect others in the present. Law preserves himself meticulously, makes alliances he finds distasteful, keeps himself useful to honor someone from the past. Both are love expressed through self-subordination, oriented in opposite temporal directions. His alliance with Luffy is also philosophically telling. Luffy's instinctive freedom constantly disrupts Law's carefully calculated plans and constantly produces better outcomes than the calculations would have. Law's arc is partly about learning to trust a kind of freedom he doesn't naturally possess. Alright, saying synthesis. What's Oda actually saying? We have 3 systems, 2 claim to be absolute, 1 admits it isn't. The Marines have absolute justice, but when you look at the actual human beings carrying the flag, you find a spectrum running from Akainu's terrifying certainty to Shirozu's hopeful pragmatism to Garp's lonely personal sovereignty to Fujitora's grief-stricken accountability. The institution doesn't produce uniformity. It produces argument, a slow generational argument about what justice is actually for. The emperors have absolute freedom, but again, the actual humans show you that the spectrum running from Luffy's pure joyful instinct to Whitebeard's selfless paternal love, to Kaido's empty nihilism, to Blackbeard's predatory hunger, to Buggy's complete philosophical absence. Freedom isn't a guarantee of anything, it's a container, and what fills it depends entirely on the person. And the Warlords show you what happens when both ideals are forced to touch reality. When justice has to make a deal with the pirates it can't eliminate. When freedom has to accept institutional cover in exchange for some of its independence. The results range from Jinbei's graceful integrity to Doflamingo's architectural evil to Kuma's devastating sacrifice to Moria's hollow imitation of everything he used to love. And here's what Oda keeps saying through all of it. The systems are not the point, the people are the point. Absolute justice is only as good as the person enforcing it. In Fujitora's hands it becomes accountability and mercy. In Akainu's hands it becomes the execution of innocent people. Same principle, completely different moral reality. Absolute freedom is only as good as the person embodying it. In Luffy's hands it becomes joy and liberation and the dismantling of corrupt power. In Blackbeard's hands it becomes predation. Same principle, completely different moral reality. This is why Luffy's Conquer Haki, the highest expression of will in the series, is not the product of a system. It is not produced by Marine training or pirate doctrine or warlord compromise. It is produced by a person who is so completely and joyfully himself in the world that cannot help but follow, so that the world cannot help but follow. And this is why Whitebeard's death hits so hard. Why Fujitora's apology matters so much. Why Kuma's sacrifice is so devastating. These moments don't fit neatly into either system's ideology. They exceed it. They point at something the systems can't contain. The simple, enormous fact that one person choosing fully and freely to be responsible for another person. That an Oda seems to be saying is that what power is actually for, not to enforce hierarchy, not to accumulate more power, not to protect the institution, to protect the person standing next to you. Luffy doesn't become the Pirate King to rule. He becomes the Pirate King. He does it because the Pirate King is the one person powerful enough that no one can take his friends away from him. That's the whole story. That's always been the whole story. So, let's see. What makes it extraordinary isn't that Luffy wins, it's that the story is honest about what winning cost, what Garp gave up, what Kuma chose to erase, what Whitebeard knew when he walked into that war. Freedom and justice are not opposites, they are the same question asked from 2 different directions. Who gets to live without fear and answer in one piece and maybe everywhere is the same? Everyone, or the answer doesn't mean anything. So yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah, like, this has been a little ADHD on here, not too bad, but a little bit, like, in a moment I was noticing, because I was realizing, like, I was going to make this go longer and stuff, and I was going to actually, now that I was getting into it, I was having no problem reading this and stuff, and I was going to read the whole thing and everything, but I have no clue how much memory is left on my fucking computer. Like, modern computing is gone to crap when it comes to AI. The evil AI is ruining it for all of us, man. It sucks. Like, I'm using AI to help me convey all this, but it still sucks. And I'm using YouTube to convey this, and YouTube still sucks. It all is shitified and sucks, and just gotta fucking work and deal with those and make some things. So I'm gonna end this video and check out how much memory I got, upload this one, make it start my next, and this has been Saged. This is I'm mixing my name and channel names up. My God, I'm a channel apparently now. I'm a non-sentient fucking AI channel thing, No. So, this has been Sage DeForest over at Saged and Confused. Peace and victory. Sent out.